My Apple investment was up nearly 100% as we ended this week. And it's not by coincidence. It happened pretty much when Apple passed the $4.5 trillion mark as far as market cap. Apple's also been hitting all-time highs, reaching $311.40. We ended this past week up 2.86% and a share price of 308.82. Also, this week, Nvidia, the largest company with a $5.2 trillion market cap, reported earnings for Q1. And as usual, they were spectacular. $58.3 billion record revenue. Tech has been on fire and it's still growing, so don't feel like you're missing out. These big names are leaders in many of our ETFs like VOO, EGT, and even SPMO. I'm invested into Apple and Microsoft, but I also rely on those funds for exposure. Let me know in the chat. Do you own Apple stock? Do you own Nvidia? If you do, you're seeing the impact in your portfolio, that long-term growth by being a buy and hold investor. But you're also seeing it impact your ETFs that you're also holding for the long term. I've been invested into these two companies. I've been building up my ETFs for years now, and these companies are still growing. When it comes to these mega cap companies, I'm not timing the market. I'm just building and holding on to my shares because these companies have been growing year after year. Looking back to 2020, when I became a more hands-on investor, back then, Apple's market cap was about 1.3 trillion, and Nvidia was just 150 billion. So what I'm sharing here is proof that consistency wins. Yes, you have to be mindful when you incorporate these individual companies into your portfolio, but these have been steadily growing. I don't want you to be fearful of investing. Yes, there are ups and downs. I encourage you to keep up with the fundamentals. Do your research, especially if you are going to incorporate individual stocks. But get started. Be consistent with building up your positions. Rely on ETFs for simplicity as well as helping you out, letting it do the work for you, rebalancing when it's needed, cutting those losers so that you're not stuck holding. So when it comes to Apple, it's not just about their iPhones. It's that entire ecosystem, App Store, iCloud, their services, MacBook, wearables. Big whales are still holding on to their position in Apple, and so am I. I didn't get to where I'm at overnight, and I am up more significantly on other positions. But of course, I love to see it approaching that 100% gain. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and put on that notification bell. Help the channel to grow and leave me any comments and questions that you have. When it comes to Apple, as I said, it's hit around $311, and analysts have been raising their price targets to $330, $340, on average $321, and a high of $400. Now back to Nvidia. And even though they announced those earnings midweek, they ended the week down about 6%. I've seen this happen over and over again. Terrific earnings, but it's hard for a company of this size to do anything that impressive in order to get the market to react. Definitely still an industry leader when it comes to AI. And zooming out over the last year, it's up about 64%. Over the last 5, up over 1,300%. I have it in 2 portfolios, and I think my largest gain right now is about 70%, but I'll include that here. When it comes to AI demand, it just won't quit. Nvidia is going to be a leader in many of our funds. I mentioned some earlier, but a few more are SCHG, QQM, many of our favorites. So never be stressed if you don't own these individual names. If you take a look at your ETFs and mutual funds, most likely you do. These companies have continued to do the heavy lifting when it comes to my portfolio, making me glad that I've made certain choices over the last few years, and I've been patient and held on. Before we move on, let's take a look at Nvidia's price targets. The end of the week at $215.33. Analysts are rating it a strong buy with an average price target of 301 and a high of 500. I've noticed this change recently on the MooMoo investing app, giving a success rate of certain analysts. CBS has it rated as a buy with a price target of $280, and Timothy's success rate is 93%. JP Morgan is giving it a price target of $280, rating it a buy, and they have a success success rate of nearly 96%. So just something easy to take a look at and reflect on when evaluating those individual companies that you're holding. Now that we talked about some long-term buy and hold investments and stock market news, I wanted to touch on some of my options trades from the last couple of weeks. But take a second. In the comments, let me know if you are a buy and hold investor like me. Are you sticking strictly to ETFs and index funds? Do you mix in individual stocks like me, or do even more than that, like incorporating options trading? So I am a long-term investor first, and my first priority is always retirement. But I do a little bit of it all. I want to capture short-term and long-term gains when it comes to my wealth building strategy. Usually a week doesn't pass that I don't trade at least one option, but I definitely took the time and put in the work to learn over the last few years. And here's a look at my trading account from the last couple of weeks. When it comes to options, my gains are about $733, Meta $520, and Google $354. My overall SPY contracts came out to a negative $18. And when I took a look at my P&L for stocks and options, numbers are very close. My blue chip stocks that I hold over in this portfolio were up about $774. I often stress throughout my videos to know the difference between what is investing and what is trading. I found the balance that works for me personally. But I just want to highlight that for those of you hearing about trading so much, it's not the only way to see gains. And I take those short-term gains to long-term investments. You don't have to do both. You see the gains that I'm achieving from holding investments into the S&P 500, those blue chip stocks like Apple, Nvidia, Google, and many others. But my gains across the board are working just fine for me. When we went through those double-digit dips at the beginning of this year, I was still pretty deep in profit on most of my positions. Just a few were in the red, like Netflix and Microsoft, but I didn't panic, didn't cut anything from my portfolio. The fundamentals of these companies are still strong. Their values are growing. Nvidia, for example, recently announced an $80 billion share buyback. They're investing into themselves. They've also increased their dividend from 1 cent to 25 cents, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a 2,400% increase. And a step to return cash to shareholders like me. So Nvidia's $80 billion stock buyback, bigger dividends, is in line with what Apple is doing. They've also recently announced $100 billion share buyback, steps that could shrink the share count over time and positively impact the shareholders. No one can see into the future. When it comes to Apple, I'm waiting for improvements when it comes to their AI integration and continued subscriber growth. When it comes to Nvidia, I want to see them continue to dominate as a chip maker. And I'm going to continue to buy and hold, making sure that I am an investor, not just a consumer, so that I can build wealth and security for myself long term. So for now, these are two stocks that I'm definitely not selling. My ETFs and index funds, so fair when it comes to holding on to them. Share in the chat one stock and fund that you're holding for the long term. Don't strive for perfection when it comes to investing. When you're holding the right companies or ETFs, those all-time highs come over and over again. You need to just get invested and stay invested in order to be on track, to start seeing those gains when it comes to your portfolio. Hope you enjoyed this update. Check out some of my recent videos on my journey to build up my position into SPMO and one of my long-term holds, FXAIX. Check out my referral links for the MooMoo Invest app, where you'll get 8.1 APY on your uninvested cash. Great research tools, some of which I touched on in today's video, like those price targets. Click on the link, fund your account, get started. All this info will be in the description. Take a look. If you're not already, subscribe, like, hit that notification bell. Don't forget to hype this video. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.